getting ready for the first significant snowfall of the season. One of Hamilton's top trauma doctors adds his own concerns over how Hamilton paramedics handled the shooting of Yosif al-Hasnawi. And a Hamilton woman who took part in the sexual abuse of a 7-year-old girl will do prison time. Exactly how much is still being debated.
CHCH Evening News with Phil Perkins and Taz Boga.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The first heavy snowfall of the season is upon us, just in time for the evening rush hour.
Yeah, Lisa Hefner's got a good view of that. She is in amongst the flurries. It looks like they subsided a bit. Hello there, Lisa.
Hey, Phil. Yeah, so the snow just started falling a couple hours ago, and there's already a thick blanket of it on the ground and on anybody's car who hasn't been scraped off yet. The 403 is right behind me, and it does seem to be moving quite well, although maybe a little slower than usual. But I did notice that in town, the side streets are already slippery. Some drivers are having a difficult time trying to get around. The link is really backed up. So we spoke to CAA today about what drivers can do to prepare for weather like this.
The first thing that people need to keep in mind as snow and weather situations like this come into effect overnight is really just to keep your eye on the weather, stay up to date with what's going on the roads, and try to plan your route if you do have to drive. Make sure that you're staying on main roads, you're not using cruise control, and never ever pass a snowplow on the right-hand side.
CAA also recommends that drivers carry an emergency kit in their car this time of year. That would include things like an extra shovel, extra winter clothes, some food and water, just in case you get stuck. Ontario Provincial Police are already on Twitter reporting accidents on the area highway, so be prepared. It might take you a little bit longer to get home today. Take it slowly and keep lots of distance between you and the car in front of you. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Lisa. And it's always a bit of an adjustment, Brian, as the first snow begins to fall. We kind of forget how to drive in the winter.
Yeah, and you got to relearn pretty quickly
because
those roads are really slippery. I know coming in on Main Street west past McMaster and across the 403 was really slippery when I was coming in this afternoon. And what we're going to get overnight is really going to compound that. Now, we've had a couple of centimeters so far, but tonight, and particularly over the next 4 hours, as you have a look here, you can see how the darker blue is the heavier snow, and that's going to push its way closer to us over the next 4 hours. So by 10 o'clock, we'll start to see some heavier bands of snow pushing in to the horseshoe. So we're looking 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. That's 2 to 4 inches for tonight. So tomorrow morning's commute is going to be even more difficult than this evening's, and the plows and snow equipment will be out during the overnight hours trying to get it good for tomorrow morning. But still, give yourself extra time and take it very slowly and carefully. And we'll talk about it, the forecast coming up in detail. Back inside.
Looking forward to it, Brian. Premier Kathleen Wynne's team is saying they're one step closer to suing Progressive Conservative Party leader Patrick Brown for defamation. The action is stemming from Brown's remarks back in September, where he indicated that the Premier was standing trial in Sudbury involving 2 provincial Liberals facing Election Act bribery charges. In a statement released this afternoon, Wynne's spokesperson said that while they're hopeful that this issue can be resolved with an apology from the PC leader, they want to show that they have the ability to continue legal action if Brown refuses to apologize. Now, his camp later responded just a couple minutes ago, saying that Patrick Brown hasn't even been served with or seen the statement of claim, and that Wynne is just trying to distract from our government's record by revealing the statement of claim to the media first.
Police are calling this morning's pipe bomb explosion in New York City an attempted terror attack. Police say the bomb was strapped to a man who detonated it in an underground passageway near Times Square. It filled the passageway with smoke and shut down subway and bus service at the nearby Port Authority bus terminal. The suspect suffered burns to his abdomen and hands. 3 other people have minor injuries.
This was an attempted terrorist attack. Thank God the perpetrator did not achieve his ultimate goals. Thank God our first responders were there so quickly to address the situation to make sure people were safe. Thank God the only injuries we know at this point were minor.
The suspect has been identified as 27-year-old Akayed Ola. Police say he was inspired by the Islamic State group. We'll have more on the bombing coming up a little bit later on in our newscast. Now, one of Hamilton's trauma surgeons is questioning why paramedics didn't immediately take Yosif al-Hasnawi to hospital.
It's a question the public and the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care are trying to get to the bottom of. Nicole Martin is live outside Hamilton General Hospital with the latest. Nicole?
The hospital behind me, the trauma center, is where Yosif's family believes their son should have been taken on the night of his murder instead of St. Joe's. We know the original call came in as a shooting, a possible shooting, shots fired. That's according to the 911 caller and police, and that's leaving one trauma surgeon with a number of questions.
We've heard it from witnesses.
The officer assumed it was a pellet gun wound.
They said he's acting and they laughing with each other.
And Yosif's parents.
I begged him, please take my son. He said he has no issue. Just tell him he's stop acting.
They're the ones who are, it's the main, cause of his death.
Allegations that the paramedics did not take the 19-year-old seriously.
You must always assume that people have genuine problems.
Dr. Frank Bailey has specialized in trauma for 20 years at the Hamilton General Hospital and has followed this story.
In this case, if they'd found even a small hole from a small bullet, they should have taken them straight to Hamilton General Hospital.
This is where Yosif was shot, on the sidewalk at the corner of Sanford Avenue and Main Street East. According to police, paramedics waited 38 minutes before they decided to take Yosif to hospital.
We have tried to encourage the paramedics, particularly in trauma calls, not to spend a lot of time at scene, rather to pick up the patient as soon as possible and bring them to the Hamilton General.
But in Yosif's case, paramedics took him to St. Joe's, a hospital that was further away than the trauma center.
My suspicion was they really did not think the individual had a traumatic event.
Steve Ryan, who made the 911 call, came to the same conclusion after what he witnessed that night.
It was ridiculous. He was laying on the ground the entire time. They got him to stand up and walked him into the ambulance.
Other than to try and get him quicker into the ambulance, I don't think we would have encouraged walking.
The first paramedic in Canada or the U.S. to be convicted of failing to provide proper care causing death under the Ambulance Act was right here in Hamilton 3 years ago. Paul Zenchuk was sentenced to 2 years probation and 200 hours of community service. The provincial offense carries a maximum sentence of up to 1 year in jail and a $25,000 fine.
And it's still unclear tonight if the paramedics in question have been suspended during this investigation. The city of Hamilton would not say, and they would only tell us that they cannot comment on an employee's employment during an active investigation. The Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, they have launched their own investigation into this matter, and really we're learning that it's only in its initial stages at this time. They just plan on interviewing the witnesses and the paramedics this week for the first time. I'll send things back to you at the desk.
All right, thanks so much for the update, Nicole. And there has been an outpouring of support for an Oshwegan family who lost their 3-year-old son and their home in a fire. An investigation is underway into what caused that deadly blaze. Britt Dixon has more.
This pile of rubble is all that's left after a fire gutted a 2-story home at 4th Line on Friday afternoon. A family of 9 were living inside, including 7 children. Firefighters rushed into the burning home to pull a 3-year-old boy out from under a bed on the 2nd floor.
It was a very hard fight to get to the child to get him out.
But he died later in hospital. The Six Nations fire chief still shaken by the tragedy.
I don't ever want another fire chief to feel this way. I don't ever want a family to feel this way or a community to feel this way again. We've reviewed this call numerous times over the past 3 days, and we've reviewed the surveillance video and the video that was taken by bystanders, and there's nothing that we could have done differently.
A 3-week-old baby and a 1-year-old child were taken to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, but have since been released. Fire officials are still trying to determine the cause of this fire, but say it looks like it started in the back of the house on the main floor. They say it's too early to say if there were working smoke detectors. Donations have been pouring in for the child's family.
I have a 4-year-old son, so it kind of hit home pretty hard for me.
Tiffany Thomas has started a GoFundMe page, which has raised more than $10,000 so far.
They lost everything, furniture, appliances, clothing, everything. So we want it to be the last thing that they have to worry about right now.
The family was too upset to speak to us today, but say they are grateful for the support.
They're really thankful. They're really thankful for everybody that's donated so far, and they're shocked with the amount of support.
Fire officials are estimating damage to be about $150,000. The GoFundMe campaign for the family is now sitting at more than $13,000. For information on how you can donate, you can visit our website. Now, the fire chief says they have been fielding donations there as well. Now, in the wake of this devastating fire, he's appealing to all residents to make sure they have working smoke detectors in their homes and a plan in place to get out safely. I'll send it back to you on the desk.
All right, thanks so much. A good reminder. And a warning for viewers, the details of this next story are disturbing. A Kitchener woman who admitted to taking part in the sexual assault of a 7-year-old Hamilton girl has had her sentencing delayed.
Now, Sonia Lucas, who was already a registered sex offender at the time of her arrest last year, spoke to a Hamilton courtroom for the final time before she'll learn how many years she'll spend behind bars.
As she spoke to a judge for the last time before she'll be sentenced, Sonia Lucas said she'd give anything to go back in time and change what she's done. The 49-year-old was arrested in 2016 during an investigation of a 7-year-old Hamilton girl who was being advertised online for sexual services. Rui de Silva of Waterloo hired Lucas as an escort to accompany him to Hamilton. Lucas claims she didn't know a young girl was going to be involved, but admitted she did record and take part in the assault. She also accepted $100 in payment from De Silva. In court today, the aunt of the little girl sobbed as the Crown read her victim impact statement. In it, she says she worries for the future of her niece and wonders how someone so young can endure so much trauma and survive. Lucas pled guilty in June to sexual interference and making and possessing child pornography. The Crown attorney is calling for 10 years behind bars.
I think sometimes for this kind of thing, there is no rehabilitation.
Members of Guardians of the Children, a biker group dedicated to fighting child abuse, have been supporting the victim and her family and say no sentence handed down will be enough.
She says that because of her history, that's kind of caused her to do what she's done, and I don't think that's an excuse. Because if you have experienced that in the past, why would you want another human being to go through the same pain?
Lucas's lawyer, Hal Matson, alleges Lucas was sexually assaulted by a number of men in her life as a child, including her uncle and a foster father. However, charges were withdrawn against the uncle, and the foster father was acquitted.
But her background situation is very empathetic, I think, and as a result of that, I'm suggesting it would be a lighter sentence.
Matson is calling for a 5 to 6 year sentence. De Silva has already been sentenced to 8 years in prison for his role in the abuse.
Well, the De Silva sentencing relates a lot to it because they were involved in the same act, so the judge wants to make sure that he's not giving a sentence that completely disregards that sentence.
Judge Tony Leach says he needs more time to review the final submissions, but says he will hand down a sentence on December 21st. Tegan Versolato, CHCH News.
It was the last day for a trial for a man accused of killing his 1-year-old grandson, Cody Smart. The Crown Defense presented their closing arguments earlier today. The judge says he could find Brian Matthews guilty of the original charge, manslaughter by the way of assault or criminal negligence, if he finds him guilty. Kelly Botello breaks it down.
Yeah. 1-year-old Cody Smart suffered severe injuries, including bleeding in his brain and hemorrhaging in both of his eyes in July of 2015. 2 days later, he died in hospital. At the time of the incident, he was in the care of his grandfather, Brian Matthews, heard here in this 911 call.
He was sitting on the floor, standing up against the couch earlier. Yeah. My dog jumped over the couch, knocked him on the floor, he hit his head.
The judge has heard from 3 doctors in this trial. All agree that the boy's injuries would most likely be caused by blunt force trauma, not by being knocked over by a dog. However, one doctor could not rule out that some of the boy's injuries could have been caused by a fall. It's been a difficult trial for Cody's step-grandfather to get through.
Knowing that we're never going to see him again, and all we have is the pictures and the memories. We're anxious to get this behind us and be able to move on with their lives.
The Crown lawyers focused on Matthew's story in their closing arguments. The Crown says inconsistencies in Matthew's retelling of the incident on several occasions was because he was lying. The defense says it's because he was very stressed. The Crown argues that Matthews assaulted Cody. However, the Crown asked the judge that if he should find some truth in Matthews' story that the dog did it, that he should still be charged with manslaughter by way of criminal negligence for leaving an 80-pound dog with an unsupervised toddler. The defense argued that Matthews could not have foreseen that a family dog would cause such serious injuries to Cody, despite Matthews having told detectives that the dog had been aggressive towards Cody before. The defense went on to say that Matthews had clarified with the detective that the dog had only been aggressive around food. Matthews' lawyers also added that he showed genuine concern in the 911 call and was a caring grandfather.
The judge will take 1 month to review all the testimony and evidence presented in this case. He will deliver his verdict on January 11th. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Kelly. A 28-year-old Hamilton man has been charged with careless driving after slamming into an on-duty police van. Police say at around 4:30 yesterday afternoon, a black Toyota traveling west on Cannon when it ran a red light and struck a fully marked police van traveling north on Victoria Avenue. The officer had minor injuries, and the careless driver escaped without getting hurt. Police used the opportunity to remind people yet again to keep their eyes on the road and not on their phones. And Hamilton police say they found the school bus that was reported stolen last week. Police say this short-style AIRCHECK bus was stolen on Friday from a compound in the city's East End. They say whoever stole it used it in several incidents around Hamilton. Police haven't reported any arrests at this time. The break-and-enter auto theft and robbery department continue to investigate the theft and are thanking the public for their help in locating the bus.
Now, speaking of buses, 2 double-decker buses doubled as championship chariots for Toronto FC as the team celebrated its first ever MLS Cup victory. Crazy fans marched down the streets of downtown Toronto alongside the team's bus. The parade wrapped up with a boisterous rally at Nathan Phillips Square. Toronto beat the Seattle Sounders 2-0 in the championship game at BMO Field Saturday night, becoming the first Canadian team to win the MLS Cup.
This has been our dream, our obsession for the last year. And to be able to take care of everything that we wanted, to be able to lift that trophy in this city in front of our fans, to be able to give everybody a day like this. This is why every single one of us are here.
Bob O'Neill, of course, will have more on that in sports.
Coming up after the break, the provinces and territories are set to make a larger chunk out of legal marijuana taxes. But first, OPP have a plan to promote safer trucking.
Welcome back. Yesterday proved one thing. We need more snow days in football. If you liked the Grey Cup, you would have liked this. TV crews, players, and of course fans enjoyed. Players from the Buffalo Bills and Indianapolis Colts slip and slide all over the place as snow pelted western New York that day. A sight only seen in places like Buffalo, Green Bay, and Chicago. Snow blowers were used so that both teams could actually see the field. Luckily for Bills fans, the snow subsided, allowing LaShawn McCoy to gallop in for a game-winning touchdown in overtime. Brian Wood, as we welcome you in now, this is lake effect, right?
That's
all
that
lake
was.
effect right
That
here.
was just lake effect snow. That was just a band of precipitation, wind generated across Lake Erie, hitting Buffalo bang on, and it happens through Buffalo quite a bit as you head through the winter season. And one of the reasons why Ellicottville is so popular for skiing this time of year. So they're getting a lot of snow there. But we're going to get some snow here tonight. We've had some snow already today. Temperature right now is -5 or 23 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit. The wind fairly light at the moment, southeast at 5 kilometers an hour. That makes it feel like -7, but tomorrow that wind is going to pick up. We do have some light flurry activity at the moment. We've had some heavier bands earlier today, but later on tonight we're going to get that pushing its way across us. That heavy snow band could give us 5 to 10 centimeters of snow throughout the overnight hours and another couple of centimeters during the day tomorrow with strong and gusty winds as well. So we have this Alberta Clipper crossing the Great Lakes, dragging colder air with it, and that's what you're going to feel during the day tomorrow when the temperatures sink during the day and those winds really kick in as that cold front goes through. So tonight, temperatures won't be too bad. -1, -2, -3 around the Horseshoe, -5 for Kitchener, Waterloo, and Guelph. But the snow continues tonight, actually intensifies as you get through the mid-evening to the late evening, and then continues overnight. Tomorrow, we're looking at flurries and windy conditions. Winds will gust to 60 kilometers an hour, blowing that snow around. So we're going to have light snow during the day, another couple of centimeters generally. But temperatures will sink to -6 by later in the afternoon for Hamilton, -5 for the Niagara area, -3 for Halton Peel and for Toronto. So we're looking generally 5 to 10 centimeters of snow and maybe just a little bit more when you calculate what we've had today and what we could get again tomorrow. So those are our sun times for the day tomorrow. Our seasonal temperatures, 1 and -6. And yes, we are expecting more flurry activity throughout the day tomorrow and some windy conditions. And we'll talk about the long-range forecast coming up in a few minutes. Taz, Phil.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. A 56-year-old Toronto man is dead after a transport truck rammed into a stalled vehicle on the westbound lanes of the 401 in Etobicoke earlier today. The OPP say just after 5 a.m., the stationary car was sideswiped by another vehicle, and moments later, the truck slammed into it. The man in the car was pronounced dead once first responders arrived. The truck driver wasn't hurt. The cause of the crash hasn't been revealed.
Provincial police are launching a new safety blitz. It's called Operation Safe Trucking. OPP and road safety partners will target transport truck drivers for the next 5 days. Officers would be aboard transport trucks, which will give them a better view to see if truck drivers are driving impaired, distracted, or without a seatbelt. They'll also be looking for aggressive drivers. There have been 6,200 transport truck-related crashes, killing 87 people.
And the federal government has reached a deal with the provinces and territories when it comes to divvying up the tax from legal marijuana sales. The agreement gives provinces at least 75 cents on the dollar. The initial breakdown had the provinces and territories taking a 50-50 share with the federal government. That was prior to the deal. Provinces and cities argued that they would be fronting the bill for law enforcement, education, and health care once marijuana becomes legalized next July.
Ontario's opposition PCs have asked the OPP to investigate millions in ineligible expenses filed by 9 power generators in the province. Now, last week, Auditor General Bonnie Lysyk reported that the generators had claimed up to $260 million in ineligible costs between 2006 and 2015, including some claims for items like scuba gear and raccoon traps. The independent electricity system operator says the amount was closer to $200 million and says $168 million has been repaid.
When we wanted to investigate this situation at committee, at the Justice Committee, the 4 Liberals on the committee voted it down. So really there's no other grounds for us than to call in the Ontario Provincial Police to investigate this.
No word yet if the OPP will in fact investigate the issue.
Still with hydro, the NDP is tabling legislation to ban prepay hydro meters in the province. NDP leader Andrew Horvath says the move will protect people from having their electricity cut off if they don't feed the meter.
We need to protect families. We need a ban on prepay hydrometers so that no one has their power cut off, so that no parent has to tell their kids they can't afford to turn on the lights, so that no senior living on a fixed income has to resort to candles and blankets because they can't afford more credits to feed the meter that week.
Horvath says if she's elected in the next provincial election, which is less than 6 months away, she would make prepaid meters illegal. She also says the NDP would bring Hydro One back into full public ownership and control, lower hydro rates by 30%, and keep them down by fixing the system.
All right, well, Premier Kathleen Wynne has announced funding for childcare spaces at nearly 200 schools across the province. It's all part of a $231 million investment across the province. Premier Kathleen Wynne says the funding will give more than 8,400 children access to high-quality licensed care in a safe, convenient setting. It's part of the Liberal government's 5-year commitment to help 100,000 more children up to the age of 4 access childcare.
British Columbia's NDP government has decided, with a heavy heart, as they say, to continue construction of a controversial hydroelectric dam. Now, once completed, the Site C dam will flood 5,500 acres of the Peace River Valley and force many Indigenous people and farmers from their homes. The BC government said that if the project was eventually cancelled, it would raise hydro rates by 12% in 3 years. To top it off, the project is going to be more expensive than originally thought. The dam was supposed to cost $8.3 billion, but now the final price is hovering just under $11 billion. All right, still ahead on the evening news, the latest on this morning's pipe bomb explosion in New York City, including more on the suspect. Plus, tens of thousands of people remain under evacuation orders in Southern California after a huge and destructive wildfire explodes in size. Welcome back. Let's head back to Manhattan now, where 3 people were injured in what authorities are calling an attempted terrorist attack.
That's right. The explosion sparking chaos in one of the busiest commuter hubs in the city. David Daniel reports the latest, including the suspect's motive.
Chaos and confusion during the Monday morning commute in Manhattan. An explosion in an underground walkway at the Port Authority bus terminal near Times Square, rocking a city already on edge. Officials say 27-year-old Ekhayat Ullah intentionally detonated a homemade pipe bomb that was strapped to his body using Velcro and zip ties.
Preliminary investigation at the scene indicates this male was wearing an improvised, low-tech explosive device attached to his body.
3 people were treated at the hospital for minor injuries. Authorities say Ullah is being treated for lacerations and burns to his hands and stomach. A law enforcement source says Ullah told investigators that he was motivated by recent Israeli actions in Gaza. Officials say he is a former taxi driver of Bangladeshi descent who lives in Brooklyn.
It was a person who was living in New York for several years, driving a car service, a cab, was disgruntled, apparently went to the internet and downloaded information as to how to make a homemade bomb.
Authorities expressing some relief, saying the situation could have been a lot worse.
This was an attempted terrorist attack. Thank God the perpetrator did not achieve his ultimate goals.
3 women who accuse President Donald Trump of sexual harassment and assault are calling for a congressional investigation. Now, the 3 women detailed their stories in a press conference in New York earlier today. The accusations range from sexual harassment and misconduct to sexual assault, including unwanted kissing and groping.
As a little girl, I would watch the Miss USA pageant every year and dream of being one of those beautiful, successful, incredibly confident women. These dreams never included a man lining us all up to look us over like we were pieces of meat. These dreams never included a man coming into the backstage hair and makeup area while I sat naked under a robe as he walked around looking at us like we were his property.
Alabama voters will head to the polls tomorrow in the closely watched U.S. Senate race. Now, in the final push for votes, Republican Roy Moore is keeping his public events limited. Several women have accused him of sexual misconduct, allegation Moore denies. Now, he still has the backing of his party, and the U.S. president, Donald Trump, has recorded robocalls endorsing him.
Roy Moore is the guy we need to pass our Make America Great Again agenda. Roy is a conservative who helped me steer this country back on track after 8 years of the Obama disaster. Get out and vote for Roy Moore.
Democratic candidate Doug Jones says this election will tell the world what Alabama stands for. If Jones wins tomorrow, Republicans would control the U.S. Senate by a slim margin.
Nearly 100,000 people remain under evacuation orders in Southern California after a huge wildfire exploded to the size of New York City and Boston combined. Firefighters have so far kept a wall of flames from racing down mountainsides into the coastal towns about 120 kilometers northwest of Los Angeles. And with no rain in the coming forecast, it's unclear when the fire will be defeated. Further south in San Diego, residents are being allowed to return to what's left of their fire-ravaged homes. Matt Boone talked to some of them as they surveyed the damage.
It's my whole life. Everything's gone.
Authorities call the process repopulation.
This was a carport right here.
But for Terry Rodriguez, it'll require rebuilding first.
This was the entrance.
Not just of her house.
It's just stuff.
But of her heart.
I'm heartbroken, but we're thankful that we're alive, and that's the most important thing.
As Caltrans lifted the blockades, firefighters continued work on a smoldering mulch pile, one of the last signs of smoke in the burn area. But memories of Thursday were still seared into the mind of Stephanie Smith.
They were trying to put out this fire, and it was like a fire tornado.
A tornado that destroyed her home and everything in it.
It's devastating. I'll be a widow this Tuesday for 20 years, and I lost my wedding rings and all of our wedding pictures, and
my wedding license and stuff I can't replace.
Despite the destruction, both she and Rodriguez are grateful that in a senior community that only had minutes to evacuate, no one was left behind.
I'm really thankful that nobody was killed.
This is a beautiful community, and it will be beautiful again because they are going to rebuild.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered a partial withdrawal of Russian troops in Syria. Now, during a visit to the country today, Putin said Russian armed forces, along with the Syrian army, have defeated ISIS. Russia has been a key supporter of Bashar al-Assad's government. Russian intervention in Syria's civil war in 2015 helped tilt power balance back to the regime. Coming up in entertainment, Meghan Markle's Toronto home up for sale. We'll tell you how much is it on sale for after the break. You can take your guesses now, though. But first, a celebrity chef is stepping away from the spotlight amid reports of sexual misconduct.
Ontario's fiscal watchdog says the Liberal government will run a deficit this fiscal year, despite claims that it's balanced the budget. In a new report, the Financial Accountability Office says the Liberals will run a $4 billion deficit in 2017-18. By 2021-22, the FAO projects the government's budget deficit will grow to $9.8 billion. The FAO also says the government's new Fair Hydro plan, which cuts hydro rates by 25%, will add $3.2 billion to the budget deficit by 2021-22. Bitcoin futures surged 18% this morning on the Chicago Board Options Exchange. The price, of course, has been surging since the first ever futures contracts for the virtual currency started trading yesterday, rising to nearly $18,200 U.S. The futures allow investors to bet on the direction of Bitcoin, but don't involve actual Bitcoin, which began the year below $1,000. So let's take a look at your closing market numbers. The TSX adding 7 points. On Wall Street, the Dow gaining 57, the Nasdaq is up 35.
At Canadian dollar up slightly to close below 78 cents U.S. Gold giving back $1.50 an ounce. Crude jumps up 63 cents to $57.99 U.S. a barrel.
Celebrity chef Mario Batali is being investigated for having a history of sexual misconduct. The chef has surrendered oversight of daily operations at his restaurant Empire following reports of sexual misconduct over a period of at least 20 years. Now, Vox Media reported today that the incidents involve at least 4 women, 3 of whom worked for Batali. One of the women said that Batali groped her chest after wine had spilled on her shirt. Another said he grabbed her from behind and holding her tightly against his body. In a prepared statement, the chef said the complaints match up with his past behavior. Batali will take a leave from his ABC cooking show, The Chew, as the investigation continues.
Torontonians will be able to grab a Lyft to work tomorrow morning. Ride-sharing company Lyft is expected to start operations in that city on Tuesday, marking its first expansion outside the U.S. Lyft will operate between Hamilton and Oshawa and as far north as Newmarket.
Well, how would you like to live like a future princess? Meghan Markle's former Toronto home has hit the market. The West End house features 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It's listed for about $1.4 million. Keep in mind, this is where the future royal lived while filming Suits. She and Prince Harry spent a lot of quality time there when they weren't at Kensington Palace. Not bad.
Now,
have the money to spare.
No one has ever been richer than you are at this
the Golden
moment.
Globe nominees are in, and we have the list of Canadian nominees. Christopher Plummer has been nominated for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in All the Money in the World. He took that from Kevin Spacey, who lost it after his sexual assault allegations. Aaron McCormick up for Best Actor in a musical or comedy series for his role in Will in the hit TV series Will and Grace. Canadian-made The Breadwinner is up for Best Animated Film. The Handmaid's Tale, based on Margaret Atwood's novel, also has several nominations, which include Best Television Drama.
It's the law now.
They needed to do it this way.
All right, the snow is settling into southern Ontario. We could get a little bit of a break over the next couple of hours, but then later on this evening, the snow will intensify. 5 to 10 centimeters of snow possible throughout the overnight hours. So definitely more time is what you'll need tomorrow morning. We'll talk about that coming up later on. Stay with us.
Racing takes on a whole new meaning with this gingerbread Zamboni kit. This kit features Canada's 7 NHL teams. The kits have been spotted in grocery stores in various cities and might be the most Canadian holiday gift ever. Would you pick one of those up, Bubs?
I don't like gingerbread.
What? I had the best ginger molasses cookie over the weekend. It was amazing. If that was a gingerbread molasses Zamboni kit, I don't even think I'd put it together. I'd just eat it.
Shortbread, dude.
Shortbread? Really?
Oh, yeah, shortbread.
Too buttery.
Oh, what? That's the whole point.
No, not butter, no.
Boy,
not into that.
You're more of a margarine guy?
Margarine guy, yeah. Why not? Why not? I'm also a champagne guy, and there's a lot of champagne in downtown Toronto earlier today.
Yes.
People are going haywire.
Celebration. Folks, to add some depth and context to fully appreciate what has really happened to soccer in the city of Toronto, you must look back. After not making the playoffs for the first 8 years of the franchise and opening the 2012 season with an 0-9 record, Toronto FC's Danny Koeverman said, "We are the worst team in the world." Well, the Dutch forward is long gone, but TFC can now claim that they are the best team in Major League Soccer. By noon today, thousands of fans packed the grounds at City Hall to celebrate TFC's MLS Cup championship that was won 2-0 with a victory over the Seattle Sounders on Saturday. The team arrived on a double-decker bus after a 40-minute parade from Maple Leaf Square to Nathan Phillips Square. Toronto Mayor John Tory deemed today Reds Day, and the people in attendance certainly did not disappoint. The celebration rally was loud and emotional to the many that were in attendance.
And we had a motto, and that motto was, they'll remember how you make them feel. So I just have one question. How do you feel?
This is the best sports city in the world. This is the best city in the world. And we love you guys so much. We can't tell you enough how much your support and the way that you drive us on, what a difference that makes for us.
Oh, you really got to like winning. You know, with a number of homegrown players like Aaron Judge, the New York Yankees were becoming a team to actually cheer for. Now they have returned to their roots as the Evil Empire as they made the acquisition of outfielder Giancarlo Stanton official today. The Bronx Bombers picking up the National League most valuable player for second baseman Starlin Castro and 2 prospects from the Miami Marlins who are in full teardown mode under new CEO Derek Jeter. And Stanton wanted no part of that action.
The way they wanted to go was to subtract. So I let that be known. I didn't want to be a part of another rebuild, another losing season. And that's almost a guaranteed losing season, taking away what I thought was a great lineup. So, yes, I didn't want to be a part of a rebuild.
Interesting CFL news as the Toronto Argonauts have acquired the rights to quarterback James Franklin and a 2018 third-round pick for Canadian offensive lineman Mason Woods. The 26-year-old who was backing up the CFL's most outstanding player, Mike Riley, was looking for a place to compete for the #1 job. Now, the Argonauts have until February the 13th to sign Franklin or deal him because he will become a free agent. Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz has been lost for the season. It is believed that the second-year gunslinger tore his left ACL during the third quarter of Sunday's win over the Rams on a negated rushing touchdown. Even though hobbled, Wentz remained in the contest for 4 more plays but did not return after being evaluated by team doctors. Taking over the starting duties is 28-year-old Nick Foles, who was actually the starter of the Eagles in 2013. The NFL and the Players Association are conducting a review of the Houston Texans' handling of quarterback Tom Savage. During Sunday's loss to the 49ers, Savage and his head were driven into the turf. And while lying on the ground, his hands and body seemed to be twitching involuntarily. After a quick examination by team doctors, Savage returned to the field for 1 more series, but was later pulled from the game after a more extensive evaluation and was later diagnosed with a concussion. The New England Patriots can clinch the AFC East for the 9th year in a row and 14th time in the last 15 years if they can defeat the Miami Dolphins tonight at Hard Rock Stadium. With their 10-2 record, the Pats should be a breeze to beat the 5-7 Dolphins, but here is something to consider, folks. Since 2001, the Pats have only won 7 of 15 games in South Florida, and the Fins have taken actually 3 of the last 4 on their home turf. There's a six-pack of games this evening in the National Hockey League, and two Canadian clubs will be playing each other as the Winnipeg Jets welcome the Vancouver Canucks. Both teams are looking to end a small losing skids as the Canucks have lost 2 straight. The Jets 3 in a row. Today was a travel day for the Toronto Maple Leafs as they face the Philadelphia Flyers on Tuesday. Leading scorer Austin Matthews missed Sunday's 1-0 win over the Edmonton Oilers with an upper body injury. Matthews suffered some incidental contact to his head when he and teammate Morgan Riley accidentally ran into each other. Seconds before a goal that was scored by Sidney Crosby, as you see there. Now, Matthews' status for the Flyers is listed as questionable. Toronto Raptors stretched their win streak to 6 games as they crowned the Sacramento Kings 102-87 on Sunday. Raps are averaging an outstanding 117 points per game during this season-high win streak, which can move to 7 games as they face the Los Angeles Clippers tonight at Staples Center. The Clips have lost 4 of 5 and will be without All-Star Blake Griffin, who is out with a sprained knee. Game time, 10:30. Canada's curling elite crowned on Sunday as Rachel Holman's Ottawa rink and Calgary's Kevin Cooey were victorious at the Roar of the Rings in the nation's capital on Sunday. Winning the Canadian Championship qualifies both teams to represent Canada at the Winter Olympics. Now, both rinks are scheduled to compete at the Continental Cup, which begins January 11th in London, Ontario, before making their way to South Korea. And Rachel Holman's rink, she actually in the Worlds last year was the only team, I think, since 1979 to win the entire competition, 13 matches, and go undefeated. So she's going to be real medal contention when they go to South Korea.
Okay, good stuff, Bubs. We're going to take a break. We're back with a check on weather after this.
Welcome back. Time to polish off the winter driving skills. You'll need that later on tonight and tomorrow morning as well after the 5 to 10 centimeters of snow in the forecast for tonight. We'll start with our temperature at the moment. -5 or 23 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit. The wind has really died off east at 5 kilometers an hour, but still that makes it feel like -8, and then we do have some light flurries at the moment. But that snow is going to intensify as we get into the overnight hours. A little bit of a break now, but there comes that darker area of blue. That means that the heavier snow will start to push in throughout the overnight hours. And as I said, 5 to 10, that's 2 to 4 inches of snow. And another little blast getting set to push its way across the western part of the Great Lakes as we get toward Wednesday. But tonight and tomorrow we're looking at fairly windy conditions. That low pressure system slides across us. That's an Alberta clipper that goes by pretty quickly, and it drops that blast of snow as it goes by. So to start your day tomorrow, we're looking at temperatures anywhere from, well, -1, -2, -3, but that's how we'll start the day. The temperatures will sink during the day as the snow really blows around, as that wind starts to really howl. So tonight temperatures will stay about where they are now, -1, 2, 3 around the horseshoe, -5 a little further away, but the snow will intensify, 5 to 10 centimeters of snow throughout the overnight. Tomorrow, flurry activity, but that wind will pick up and start some blowing snow, so temperatures anywhere from -3, Halton, Peel, and Toronto, will sink to -6 and -5 for the Niagara area in Hamilton. So snow on and off throughout the day tomorrow, but light snow flurry activity. Wednesday, the sunshine comes back, but it stays cold into Thursday. -4 with flurries on Friday, and then temperatures moderate as we get into the weekend. That's your forecast check. Phil.
Thank you very much, Brian. You may have remembered the fire at a townhouse complex in Waterdown last week that cost $500,000 in damages to a dozen units. And an image that resonated with many was that of a dog being resuscitated by first responders. The dog was unconscious when they found it and revived after they applied CPR. Now, on Sunday, the French bulldog named Charlotte paid her rescuers a visit. Charlotte clearly very appreciative for Engine 24 crew with the Waterdown Fire Department. I love it. Ears are perky means they're happy. I just made that up. That's not a thing. You're a dog person. Does that mean they're happy?
You can't really tell if that kind of dog is happy.
Yeah, I can't tell with that
dog.
I don't know that breed. I can't help you there.
Okay, we're going to take, we're going to say goodnight to you. We're back at 11. See you then.
and we had a motto, and that motto was, they'll remember how you make them feel. So I just have one question. How do you feel?
This is the best sports city in the world. This is the best city in the world. And we love you guys so much. We can't tell you enough how much your support and the way that you drive us on, what a difference that makes for us.